this session, we will be having course material number 1. That is all about instructional and manipulative materials in mathematics. So just like what you see on your screen, this course gives you a clear concept of what instructional materials is and its importance. At the same time, we will be focusing also on manipulative materials, especially in mathematics. Okay? Now, to begin with, let's start with the objectives of this course material. At the end of this course material, you will be able to identify different kinds of instructional and manipulative materials in mathematics, discusses the benefits of instructional materials, explains the 2 types of manipulatives and its importance. So these are the objectives for our course material. Now let's begin with instructional materials. What are instructional materials? Instructional materials are simply the content or information conveyed within a course. These are lectures, these are readings, textbooks, multimedia components, and other resources in a course. These materials can be used both in face-to-face and online classrooms. However, some of these must be modified or redesigned to be effective for the online environment. Just like what I'm doing right now in my online classes in my mother's school, the materials I have used during the face-to-face, I redesigned that for online format. Because I cannot use those things anymore sa face-to-face when I shifted to online learning. So take note, you need to modify or redesign some of those materials. Now, the best instructional materials are aligned with all other elements in the course, including the learning objectives, the assessments, and the activities. Instructional materials provide the core information that students will experience, learn, and apply during a course. They hold the power to engage or demotivate students. Now, when you were junior high school students or elementary students, were you able to experience like making use of different manipulatives, especially when you were elementary? Elementary students need to be exposed with these kinds of materials. I'm not saying during high school, but also during your junior high school, you experienced like using the algebra tiles, the spinners, the different mathematical manipulatives? Have you experienced this one? When you were still high school, have you tried like using, are you familiar with algebra tiles? Colored spinners. Are you familiar with that, by the way? Oh, okay. So we will be mastering the usage of those things here. Okay? But in module number 1, in course material number 1, we will not have that yet because course material 1 and 2 is more on theories, more on concepts. The application will be done in course materials 3, 4, and 5. So course material 1 and number 2, those are pure theories. Everything is found in your course material. All the answers are found in your course material. Okay? Next, what are the types of instructional materials? These are the different types. When you say print, you have their textbooks, pamphlets, handouts, study guides, manuals. And you are all familiar with this because we have been using this all the time. Audio, like the cassettes, the microphone, the podcast, those are audio. Visual, the charts, the real objects, the photographs, transparencies. Audiovisual, the slides, the tapes, films, television, video, multimedia. And lastly, electronic interactive, that is computers, graphing calculators, and tablets. Now, as we go on with our course this semester, the second sem, I will be introducing a lot, probably 4 interactive nga electronic applications. Okay? And I hope na you will also use this one when you teach mathematics na as a teacher someday. Okay? Now, let's continue. What are the benefits of the use of instructional materials? Number 1, apply concept. What do you mean by this when you apply concept? What makes this a benefit from the use of instructional materials? Like, not just in mathematics, probably in all other subjects. What do you mean by the benefit that it applies concept? Because making use of instructional materials will give an idea that the students, what the students learned in the classroom can be applied to real situations. That's one best outcome when you make use of instructional materials. Because when you say pure lecture lang, like example, you just stand and you feed all your students, wala, there is no application of the concept. But when you like make use of instructional materials, like you make use of mga pictures on how this is applied, it's simply applying the concept and relating this to the real world. Okay? Next, increase motivation. Making use of instructional materials increases the motivation of the students. Why? Because instructional materials is engaging. They should be engaging. They should develop students' interest. One way also is this. When I was way back during my high school years, our teacher introduced algebra tiles. And I was able to understand clearly factoring because of the algebra tiles. I was able to grasp the concept of it because I was motivated, because I will be like, I'm gonna be using colored algebra tiles, the small box, the small squares, the big square, the rectangles. So I was motivated with the use of that. And our teacher did not like introduce the concept right away. He made use of algebra tiles to introduce factoring. And we will have that. I am hoping na when you master the use of algebra tiles in factoring, I hope na you will apply this when you teach someday. Because I myself, I make use of the algebra tiles when I teach factoring. Next, easiest to learn. That's what happened to me. Using the different instructional materials made learning very, very easy. Number 4, promotes critical and creative thinking. Since the use of learning tools promotes active learning, the students will acquire skills to analyze, synthesize, and apply the material. So katong paggamit namo sa algebra tiles before, that was very, very useful na develop among critical and creative thinking. Because we were not taught like, mauni answer ninyo, we will arrive with the answer using the algebra tiles. We will be manipulating it. We will be like, naami i-change, naami usbo, naami ipunno. That's it. So that's the fun thing about making use of instructional materials. Number 5, fun learning. I had fun using the algebra tiles. And there are a lot of other instructional materials that makes learning very fun. Okay? Now, what are manipulatives? Manipulative are supports for children to explore and make sense of mathematical ideas. When I introduce factoring, the idea, if you are a teacher and you will introduce the concept right away, you are not making sense at all. I made sense when I introduced algebra tiles because mathematics is an abstract, and I made use of algebra tiles to make it concrete so they can see it and apply it. Because if they will just solve it using factoring, using paper and pen, that's abstract. But when you make sense out of it, like applying something and making it concrete, that is the importance of manipulatives. You are making use of manipulatives there. So they are often thought of as a representation for a concept. Next, an object which is designed so that a learner can perceive some mathematical concept by manipulating it. So you're familiar also with like mga dice, mga deck of cards, the spinners, especially in probability. I do not introduce probability right away. I make use of dice. I make use of coins. I experiment on that. I let my students give me the idea on what probability is, rather than introducing the concept right away. Okay? Let the students manipulate something for them to acquire the learning that you want. These are concrete objects that allow students to explore an idea in an active, hands-on approach. Manipulatives can be almost anything. Those are blocks, those are shapes, spinners, or even paper that is cut or folded. Just like, for example, when you introduce the concept of fractions, kanang usa ka one whole, that's a very good material, that's a very good manipulative. Like, for example, you'll be showing your students, show me one whole, or the students will be raising a one whole. Show me one half. So the students will be folding the paper into half. If the teacher will say, show me 1/8, the students will fold it and they should show 1/8. So even a single paper, that can be used as a manipulative. So you don't need to buy things for you to have like mga manipulatives. You can create like the tangrams, the algebra tiles. I make my own algebra tiles. And my students, I let them make their own also. Okay? Next, the use of manipulative provides a way for children to learn concepts through developmental, appropriate, hands-on experiences. So the key word here is simply hands-on. Manipulate. Okay? Next, mathematical manipulatives are frequent use in the first step of teaching mathematical concepts, that of concrete representation. The second and third steps are representation and abstract. Now, abstract concepts are essential to understanding and doing math. They are also a source of difficulty of students who struggle with math. But when you make use of manipulatives, kung makasabot sila ana nga concept like factoring, I made use of that. The abstract concept of factoring going to concrete representation, mas madali o mas masabtan sa mga students. Okay? A popular approach to help students understand abstract concepts is to make use of manipulatives. Manipulatives help students and teachers concretely represent abstract math concepts. Just like, for example, if you're having a lesson about fractions, maingon ra ka, 1/2, 1/4, but you're not showing anything. How can the students visualize what 1/2 is and what 1/4 is if you don't have something to show them, or they cannot manipulate anything for them to show 1/2 or 1/4? So it's very, very important nga ang abstract concept, we will make it concrete, makita din sa mga bata. That's the one thing. That's our challenge as math teachers. Okay? Next, what are the top 5 reasons for using manipulatives? Number 1, manipulatives can provide a bridge between the concrete and the abstract levels of many mathematical topics. Just like what I said a while ago, that's our challenge, to connect abstract and concrete sa mga topics nga atong ibang discuss atong students pohon. Okay? Number 2, manipulatives can serve as models that support students as they think, remember, and communicate about the mathematics being studied. You know what? Maunang I do not forget factoring, because the algebra tiles is always on my mind when I say factoring. Algebra tiles. That's the one thing. Because when you have models, those models can be easily remembered by the students rather than giving them the concept right away. That's the one thing nga, the one reason why using manipulatives in the classroom. Number 3, manipulatives provide another representation for the mathematics being studied. And number 4, manipulatives support student engagement and differentiation. Number 5, manipulatives can give student ownership of their own learning. So these are the top 5 reasons for using manipulatives in the classroom. Now, let's go to the 2 kinds of manipulatives. The first is what you call the concrete manipulatives. These are objects that we can touch or move to introduce or reinforce a concept. This one over here, this one over here. These are examples of concrete manipulatives. Virtual manipulatives, these are interactive, web-based visual representation of a dynamic object that can provide opportunities for constructing mathematical knowledge. So these are examples of virtual manipulatives in mathematics. So later on, as we go on with the different modules, we will be exploring the concrete and the virtual manipulatives. Okay? Now let's now discuss the 3 different tasks that you will be answering, because this ends our presentation for this evening. It's very, very short. Are there any questions, by the way? By the way, is everything clear so far? Okay, now I will go to the different tasks. Okay, let's talk about the first task, knowledge building. Now, in knowledge building, just like what I said, I will be making Google Forms for task number 1. Again, I will be making Google Forms for task number 1. So, ang answers ninyo sa inyong Google Forms sa aning activity are letters only. Capital letters, please. Like for example, capital letter A, capital letter B. You will be encoding that in the Google form. Again, only the letter. All of these things, all of these questions are found in your course material number 1. And you have options over here. So this is all about knowledge building. Again, in knowledge building, I will be making use of a Google form for this one. And the Google forms will be given, that will be sent to you next week pa. I will give you a lot of time to make use of your time nga. Maka-answer mo anang 1 to 10 and you will have a perfect score on that. Okay? Now, the critical thinking part. I have discussed this already. The benefits of engaging instructional materials. That's over here. These are the benefits. Where are you? These are the benefits. Here you go. Mauni ipang suwat ninyo kini. And then, after each, you explain this. Please do not copy this, ha? Explain this one. What's your understanding on this? What's your understanding on this? So, each benefit over here, so you have here the first benefit, butang ni mo din he, explanation sa ubos. Second benefit, explanation sa ubos. Third benefit, explanation sa bottom part. Fourth benefit, explanation sa bottom part. Then, the last benefit, explanation. And then, you make use of a long bond paper. So, take note of the rules, the guides here. Okay? Are there any questions about the task number 2? Sir, pwede ra dili circle, like I'll be using mga clouds, I'll be using squares. No problem. You can create your own spider web chart design. Sir, like, pwede computerize? Pwede kaayo computerize. Sir, pwede handwritten? Pwede kaayo handwritten. And you will be submitting this in the Google Classroom. Your output. In the critical thinking part. Are there any questions about task number 2? Okay, everything is clear. Let's go to the creating part. So the creating part is so simple. You make use or make a concept map about manipulatives. So this is a sample. Manipulatives. What are the types of manipulatives again? Okay, concrete and virtual. So, concrete, explain unsay pasabot sa concrete. Virtual, explain unsay pasabot sa virtual. And then, these are the reasons for the usage. Diba? There are top 5 reasons. Right? Number 1, explain your understanding. Number 2 reason, explain your understanding on that. Number 3, number 4, and number 5. This is task number 3. So take note, aside from the explanation, you give 2 examples for concrete, duha ka examples pod sa virtual. Sir, pwede mga pictures, sir. Pwede kaayo, butang ninyo ang pictures ana niya.